And actually, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because I know me. And yet,
So that's our life's mission. That's the McShin's mission.
You don't have to understand my boundaries to respect them.
Well, no, I'm the president, co-founder of McShin, a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorders.
How do you go about fixing the damage in the trust between the family after you get out?
Okay, I gotta work on that.
Celebrating my 6 months. Didn't have cake.
yeah.
Gosh, you showed up.
Hey, welcome to Get in the Herd podcast, brought to you by the McShin Foundation. My name is Art, and today I'm here with Anthony Adams. He's a McShin Foundation participant. He's also my roommate. We live together at Smith House, along with 8 other people. It's not just me and Anthony. So, how you doing, Anthony?
Pretty good.
How you feeling today?
Pretty good. Pretty excited.
Excited for?
Just got a new job today, so.
Yeah, where is that at?
The UPS warehouse.
Okay. And what are you going to be doing there?
Basically like package handling.
Sounds good. It's going to be busy for Christmas, holidays.
Yeah, probably pretty busy.
That's good, man. I'm glad you got that job. We were just talking about it last night, and I feel like Anthony could take on some more responsibility, and I feel like that would, kind of, he's leveling up, basically. He's leveling up. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you were born, a little bit about your childhood, and, just let's start with that.
Well, I was born and raised in Poughkeepsie, New York. It's an hour and a half north of New York City. I ended up moving down to Virginia when I was about 15 years old because of my dad's job. And my sister and I came down here kicking and screaming. I have a younger sister who's 21 months younger than me, and we've always been pretty close growing up. And
Why'd you guys come down here? What was the decision? Like, why did?
My dad got a better, higher paying job.
Okay.
And we've also always had family in Richmond, so.
All right. And so your life before this, basically, your whole, childhood and basically you growing up has been in New York.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So that's a pretty big change, I guess. How far away from the city, like from New York City, were you?
We were an hour and a half north of the city by train.
Okay. And so can you tell me a little bit about your childhood, school and family life, and what was your relationship with as your parents? How did they raise you?
Well, my mom is very religious, very religiously Roman Catholic. And so I was raised in the Catholic Church. I was baptized in the Catholic Church when I was a newborn. I received my first communion, first confirmation, and got confirmed when I was 14. So it was a pretty strict upbringing in that sense, but in other senses, I had a lot of freedom growing up because my parents pretty much couldn't figure out how to control me and how to punish me in a way that I would actually learn my lesson. So I was allowed to pretty much do whatever I wanted and got away with it.
And what was that? Why was that? So they couldn't figure out consequences that would affect you, or they did and it didn't affect you, or what?
They couldn't figure out consequences that would affect me. Like they would try to ground me, and I would find a way to escape the house and hang out with my friends still. Um, they would try to take things away from me, and I would just find something else to do instead. Stuff like that.
It just didn't faze you.
Yeah, it just didn't faze me.
Okay. What kind of things were you getting in trouble for as a kid?
As a kid growing up, it was things like getting into fights with other kids, doing really stupid, dangerous things that could have gotten me killed. We used to, as kids growing up, we would bring our little Tex wagon up to the top of the tallest hill on our block and flip the handle around while you sat inside it, and then one of my friends would push me down, and the only way you could stop the wagon was to crash it.
Oh shoot! All
Yeah.
right. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I mean, I used to do stuff like that. We used to get, you remember those Power Wheels, like little cars, like little
Yeah.
small electric little battery cars for kids, and we used to get those and bring them to the top of a hill. I used to live on this really steep hill in California, Montezuma. That was a street, and it was a really steep hill, and we used to do stuff like that. So, what was like something that I mean, you getting in trouble as a kid, like that's not really like super crazy, you know? Is there anything that happened as a kid that, what was it that your parents were like struggling with the most?
The most that my parents were struggling with is my gender, because I was born female, and it was very apparent from the time I was like 3, 4 years old that I wanted to be a boy.
Okay.
And my mom was the one who struggled with that. My dad, he didn't really care. He was like, "It's your life. It's up to you what you want to do with it. And if you want to be my son, then that's your decision to make." But my mom was just like, "No, you were born with a female body, so you have to be a woman when you grow up, and you have to be my daughter."
I'm assuming that her coming from like a religious background, that's something
Yeah.
that pretty much came from, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I remember when I was about like 10 or 11 years old. My cousin Andrew, on my mom's side of the family, he came out as gay. And when I started asking my mom questions about it, she told me, "Oh, your cousin Andrew is going to go to hell for being gay."
Mm.
And she told me, like, all gay people and trans people go to hell.
And how old were you?
I was about 10, 11.
And at this time, did your mom, were you already expressing, um, ideas or wanting to change genders?
I mean, I was showing signs of wanting to transition when I was about like 4 or 5 years old, because by the time I was 7 or 8, I started looking like a little boy, to the point where my parents would get compliments on how adorable and sweet their son was.
Okay, but at this time, you still hadn't expressed this to your parents.
I mean, I did, like, I do remember when I was 6 years old asking my parents if they could start calling me Anthony, and I didn't know what pronouns were, so I asked them to use boy words for me,
Mm.
basically being like use he him pronouns for me, but in my own 6-year-old way. And my dad was just all like, "Whatever you want to do," and my mom was like, "No, you can't do that."
Okay. So and then so I'm assuming that that created arguments between your parents.
Yeah, it did create a lot of arguments between my parents growing up.
That must have been tough. That must have been really confusing as well.
Yeah, it was pretty tough and confusing, because I mean, I would be in my room trying to sleep at night and hear my parents arguing about sending me to therapy. My mom just being like, "No, I can handle this myself," and my dad saying, "Well, you've been trying to handle this yourself for years now. Like, our son is 8 years old now, and he still hasn't changed at all, so he needs therapy."
Hmm.
And my dad saying to my mom, "Well, Anthony's pediatrician said that he needs therapy, so why don't we take him? It doesn't hurt to try."
And did that happen? Did they take you to therapy or?
It wasn't until I was 15 and finally started like reaching out for help from other people in my community, more specifically my guidance counselor, Adam, who I still meet with on a weekly basis. He mentors me now. Um, I reached out to him and explained to him what I was going through throughout my childhood. And I mean, he has a daughter who was in my class growing up. So he had watched me grow up and he knew. And I remember him telling me about a year or two later after I came out that when I came out to him, he felt relieved, because he said that he was so worried by the time I was 15 that I was going to commit suicide. So he was very happy once I finally came forward to him and was like, "Yeah, I'm trans. I need to do something about this."
Now, growing up, were those thoughts did you have suicidal thoughts, or did you have those thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time having a suicidal thought was when I was about 6 years old.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was sitting in my mom's car. We were going to religious ed, and I was waiting on my mom to get in the car and start it. And I was sitting in my car seat and staring ahead in front of me, just like, why do I continue to live? Like, why am I continuing to do this if I'm not getting to live the life that I'm supposed to live, which meant like, why am I continuing to live if I don't get to be a boy?
That's pretty deep for a 6-year-old. That's tough, man. That's a lot. So I guess let's fast forward a little bit. So you said you were 15, and at 15 you decided to come out and tell your parents like this is it. And what was that like? You said, because I know you told me that you had written a letter, and I know you sent it to me. I haven't read it yet, but the letter that you sent to your parents, what was that? What was that like?
Um, that was honestly pretty empowering for me to sit down and spend the hours that I did typing up that letter and printing it out and having Adam proofread it, and then him telling me that it was very beautifully written and that he honestly could feel the feelings that I felt in the stories I was telling in the letter. And then I handed it to my parents that evening, and they read it. And something that my dad actually told me a couple of years ago is that he still has held on to the letter to this day.
No, that's pretty deep, man. That must be a good feeling, actually. How what were how did your parents react?
My dad reacted to it. He just pretty much sat me down, just the two of us, and was like, and told me that he understood where I was coming from and that he's known practically my entire life that I'm his son. That it's just going to take an adjustment period for him to start consistently calling me a different name and using different pronouns for me and calling me his son.
Yeah, which is fair. I mean, very. That's of course that's going to be difficult to.
Yeah, and I mean, I told him that I understood that
Yeah,
perfectly. That as long as he was putting the effort in, that I was happy. And he asked me if I would send him some links to some books that he could buy online and some information that he could read up on so that he could understand where I'm coming from and understand like what all is involved in the process of medically transitioning.
that's awesome. It sounds like your dad's been real supportive.
Yeah, he has been real supportive.
Yeah, and then your mom, how did that was a different story, right? That
Yeah,
didn't.
that was a whole different
Okay.
story.
How did she feel about it? What did she say?
She said that she wanted me to get an official diagnosis for what's called gender dysphoria, which is, like in layman's term, the mental illness that causes people to be trans. And she also told me that she wanted me to start meeting with a priest about it.
Coming from that religious background.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that, man. I do understand that. My mom was a very religious person, and my mom passed away 4 years ago to an overdose. And when my mom, for the most part, when my mom was sober, she was very religious, go to church all the time. I grew up going to church on Sundays. I used to fight it a lot, though. I didn't, that's not something that I wanted to do. But I get that. I get that feeling, and from what I understand and from what I feel from with my mom is that she that's all she knew. She grew up like that, so that's what she tried to do with her kids. So, but at the same time, I could see the struggle or it being difficult with her you know, not understanding, I guess, or not trying to understand. It sounds like she didn't try to understand what you wanted to do or what you decided.
Yeah, I mean, she really never tried. Like, I would present her with all this information, books, literature, all that stuff,
She
and
just wasn't hearing it.
yeah, and she wouldn't even pick up the books.
Okay. So, and that you said, so this was about 15 years old, right?
Yeah.
So, when did your drug use start, and when did that start?
That started when I was about like 14 years old. I started experimenting.
Okay. Now, looking back, do you have you kind of figured out why you started experimenting, or it's still kind of
I mean, I have started looking back not only through like through the step work I've been doing with my sponsor, Narcotics Anonymous, but also in individual therapy and my weekly Zoom meetings with Adam as to why I started using. And I know that a lot of it has to do with me being transgender. Because I mean, I remember even when I was in active addiction having the thought that being high and under the influence was the only time where I actually felt somewhat like a normal person, if that's even a thing.
Hmm. So you were trying to were you trying to cover up those feelings, or were these feelings that you had that you wanted to change, or you
It was more so me wanting to cover up the discomfort that I felt in my own skin and in my body.
and was the discomfort, did that come from the outside, because of people how they reacted to that, or was it discomfort within yourself, like you didn't want to feel like that?
It was a combination of both.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's very distressing when you have a male brain and your brain's telling you you're supposed to have a male body, but
Mm.
you look down and see something completely different.
Yeah, I can imagine it.
It's kind of like, to put it into perspective, like when someone gets a really gruesome injury, like someone breaking their leg and they can see the bone poking out of their leg, and you look down and see that. That's pretty
mm,
much what it feels like to be transgender, at
yeah.
least in my experience. I can't speak for anybody else, but speaking for myself, that's how it feels to me.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So did using drugs, like what type of drugs did you start using?
In the beginning, it was just vaping, THC, and also alcohol.
Okay. And did any of these substances uh, make you feel better? Did they get you out of, did they cover up the feelings that you were trying to cover?
Yeah, they covered up all the negative emotions I didn't want to feel.
Okay. So as soon as you get that relief, basically you just want to keep feeling that relief, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where, addiction kind of comes in, basically.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I remember the first time that I got high off of weed, I got the thought, oh my God, this feels way too good. And then I instantly got the thought, oh, I fucked up.
mm, you get that feeling like, I remember being 15 myself, and I started using meth at 15, and I remember as soon as I used it, I was like, wow, this is how I want to feel all the time. And I remember even saying the words like I'm a drug addict, and like being okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how I was. I was just like, I want to get more of this. I want to start feeling this even more often than I am right now. And then was like, fuck, I'm an addict. Well,
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
Yeah. So marijuana, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, and then from talking to you, like I know you started using cocaine as well, right?
Yeah, that was about when I was 18.
Okay. And so now using drugs, like I know as an addict myself, um, you kind of why is it you think that you started using cocaine and switching? Like if weed made you feel that good, like what made you want to go and switch to another substance?
Honestly, it was because the weed wasn't doing anything for me anymore.
Okay.
I would smoke, I could smoke like a whole gram and nothing.
Mm. And you build up that tolerance, and then it's
Yeah.
just not the same. Nothing's ever the same. Like the first time you get high, um, the only time like I would feel what I wanted to with weed was if I took like a huge tolerance break. I would stop for a couple of months and then do it again, and but then it goes away quickly. So
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the plan in the beginning was I was just like, I'm going to replace weed with cocaine for a little bit here. And then I ended up getting addicted to coke.
now, were you just using cocaine, or did you get into crack?
It was only ever powder cocaine. I reached out for help before it got to the point where I started doing crack or shooting anything up.
Yeah. So this is about 18. Started using about 14, 15, going into cocaine around 18. What kind of trouble was using getting you into?
I mean, I never got in trouble with the law. I never actually got caught with anything, or at least got caught in a case where the police actually cared.
Mm,
But it was more so causing me problems with housing, financial stability, securing enough food to be able to get by. that kind of stuff.
Okay, so your life was becoming unmanageable in the sense of, all those things beside pretty much everything besides criminal or besides law.
Yeah, and I mean, I even noticed like my mental health slipping.
Yeah.
I was getting more depressed, which I was like, why am I? Which I eventually got the thought, why am I using drugs to stop feeling depressed, but I'm getting more depressed?
Mm.
Because I mean, this time last year, I was living out of a motel room by myself, and I would go anywhere from a week and a half to 2 weeks without even so much as putting on deodorant, let alone a shower.
Yeah. Pretty much after a while, like all you care about is that high and seeking and finding the drugs, doing the drugs, when you're going to get the drugs next. And like everything else goes out the window, family, you know, personal care, like everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And so you said this time last year, how old are you now?
19.
19. So this happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about how you came to want to get clean and sober. Like what was the event that said, hey man, like this has got to stop, like I got to do something, I got to change.
It pretty much was back in March of this year. I had a seizure that could have honestly killed me if I would have been alone. Um, and I ended up walking over to the CVS that one of my friends worked at to go and walk her home from work. And when I got there, um, about like not even 10 minutes later, I had a seizure. And when I came to, and about like a few hours later, when we were in the ER, I eventually realized like I gotta get my shit together. I could have died.
Mm.
And it was in that moment that I realized that there's some sort of power greater than myself out there that wants me alive and wants me to get clean and help others.
And so what happened? How did you where did you go, what did you?
Um, about 2 weeks later, I went into a recovery house. I was there for about 10 days and then I relapsed on weed. And then went to a mental hospital for 5 days to detox. And then went to another recovery house. And that organization ended up putting me in a woman's home. And that just was a whole traumatic experience for me
Mm.
because it's pretty messed up being a 19-year-old straight guy who likes women in a woman's house.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah.
So I ended up talking to some of the staff there and then came to McShin.
Okay.
And that was on April 25th that I got to McShin.
I remember back then, I remember meeting you at the smoke shack. Here at the McShin Foundation, we got a smoke shack. It's where everyone goes to smoke, and where relationships are started. And that wasn't funny. That wasn't funny.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, the smoke shack. So, and I believe you moved into La France, right?
Yeah, I was at La France for the first week I was here, and it was exactly 1 week later that I moved into Smith House.
Okay. And what is you've been doing pretty well. Like you haven't had a lapse or a recurrence of use, and you are positive guy around the house. You're responsible. You're changing. Like I said, from what you told me, like you were doing in the past, like you definitely have made a 180. Like so, what is there like? Is there anything you want to talk to me about or anything you want to share? I know that recently on Sunday, this past Sunday, it was the first time that you kind of said, "Hey, I'm transgender in public," and you did it in front of everyone here at McShin. And I don't know if you realized it or not, but that I was also live streaming that, so that's on YouTube now.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that in the moment, honestly.
How did it just come out naturally, or did you know what you were doing when you went up there?
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much just came out naturally. I was like, I feel like it's about time that I start being honest about this because it's only going to benefit me and other people.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like that it takes a lot to do that, especially in front of peers, people, especially you being so young. Would you say you're 19?
Yeah.
Yeah, only 19 years old, and just putting it all out there. That's big, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, like, there's not very many people my age who are able to live on their own, support themselves, and also be able to stay clean and
Mm.
even make the choice to get clean in the first place.
Yeah, getting clean at a young age is very difficult. It's very hard to do. I'm 35, and I've been in and out of treatment centers since I was 17. Went to my first one when I was 17, and um, it's taken me a long time to put together. I almost have a year. I got a year coming up on the 1st of January, so this is the longest time I've ever had clean. And I know a lot of it has to do with like just being young and feel like it was a mixture of stuff, like feeling like I'm missing out, feeling like I don't have a problem, I'm not like them. I still have things. I just not. I had to lose everything. I had to lose everything to to want to get clean. So you know,
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, something that motivated me was when I talked to this one transgender woman that I know that's in recovery in Richmond, and she told me one day that she can't have her medical transition without recovery. Because I mean, they won't perform any surgeries on you, even if you have nicotine in your system, let alone cocaine
hmm.
or fentanyl.
So what's the process on that? Like, what
Like going about getting surgeries.
is that? What you're trying to do?
Yeah, eventually I want to.
What? How does that work? Are you taking? What steps do you need to take to do that?
Pretty much like it depends on the surgery that you're getting, because with most trans guys, they'll get what's called top surgery, which is basically a double mastectomy, like removing both breasts.
Mhm.
And then there's bottom surgery, which is basically giving you a penis.
Okay.
And if you want to, they can remove what you already have, like your uterus, ovaries, and vagina and stuff. So eventually, so there's two different processes for both of them. So with top surgery, it's a lot easier. You can do what's called informed consent, which is basically where you sign a document stating I know the risks that are involved with this, and they operate on you. Or you sometimes, in order, especially if you want to get it covered through insurance, you have to get letters of recommendations from mental health professionals like a therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, and you need at least one or two, depending on your insurance.
But if you do get those, approvals from the doctors, like your insurance will cover it.
Yeah, but sometimes they leave you with a copay and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
It depends on who you have.
And then I can imagine, like, in order to get those signatures from those doctors, you gotta prove to them that you're in the right state of mind and that you are, not.
Not doing it impulsively.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
pretty
then when
much.
a lot of decisions are made impulsively, when you're using drugs or under the influence a lot.
Yeah.
So I could see that. So is getting clean and sober and is staying in recovery, is that a big part of is that a big part of the reason why you are in recovery?
It definitely is one of the big reasons, but honestly, and like the biggest reason is because I want to be able to prove to not only people who are significantly older than me, but also people around my age that you can get clean at a young age and stay clean
Yeah,
and be living proof to other teenagers out there who are struggling with addiction.
that's awesome.
I mean, my eventual goal in life is to go to college and go through graduate school and get my doctorate and become a child psychologist. And I would love to be able to sit there and say to my patients, hey, I got clean at 19 and I have X amount of decades clean now. You can do it.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you can't get clean and stay clean as a teenager.
And then also a big part of it is too is being transgender. Like, that's huge. Like, there's not a lot of people out there that I can't imagine. I don't actually know the statistics on that, but like getting clean at a young age, going through that process, and you could help so many people that are in the same position as you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I have friends out there in New York who I keep tabs on through other people. I don't have direct communication with them, but I know enough people that I can ask, "Hey, how is this dude doing?" And I have friends who are the same age as me and transgender as well who are struggling with addiction right now, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Mm.
And I've tried like reaching out to them directly and offering help, but they typically are like, I don't really have a problem. I'm gonna be fine. And I'm like, dude, like your doctor won't even prescribe you testosterone. It's that bad. Like you can't even get hormones. It's that bad. So why don't you accept this help?
Mm. That's big, man. I commend you for that. That's awesome that you want to do stuff like that. It's an honor to know you and to 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 live with you and to see you walk, and do the things that you're doing right now. And I do appreciate all the interactions that we have, and you know, um, you do bring like a vibe to the house and to to myself too. Like I when I talk to you, like it's you're easy to talk to, and like we laugh, we joke around and stuff, and like there's not a lot of people that I do that with, or that I even try to do that with. Like, and with you, like I don't even try. Like it just happens, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gotten that compliment before, so thank
Yeah,
you very much.
yeah, man.
And I mean, you're definitely one of my favorite people in the house.
Appreciate it, man. Um, so Dexter, let's put Dexter in the shot.
My dinosaur.
Tell me about Dexter.
He's my stuffed toy dinosaur that I've had for about a year now, who's in recovery with me. Like in the beginning, I took him everywhere with me, but now I'm starting to like slowly wean myself off of him because one of the reasons why I used was anxiety.
Mm.
But um, so I pretty much was like, well, what's worse, getting high and killing myself, or getting embarrassed because I carry around a stuffed toy dinosaur with me? So I was like, I'll just carry around a stuffed toy dinosaur with me. Like, fuck what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, man. Fuck him.
Yeah, if they think I'm weird, then fuck off.
And
And I mean,
I think it's awesome. I think it's really cool. Like, and it's been working, right?
yeah,
It works. Dexter is also is one of us. He's an addict,
yeah,
and Dexter used to get high.
yeah,
Um,
off them dinosaur drugs.
yeah, dino drugs. So, and Dexter has been there for Anthony's done this with him, and it's a very cool it's a cool idea. It's a cool thing to do, and like you said, man, fuck everyone. Like you do you, and whatever works for you is good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I also like, being trans. I was the weird kid growing up. Like, I was the weird girl who looked like a boy. So I've kind of gotten used to just being seen as the weird kid per
Mm.
se. So I'm like, if I'm the weird guy at McShin, then who gives a fuck?
And what's cool is like you've kind of become that like some type of a staple in McShin, like
Yeah,
dinosaur boy, like
yeah,
as John Shinholzer would say,
yeah,
and it's really cool, man. Like I feel like for the most part, everyone I know at least just accepts who you are, and what what that's a really cool thing about McShin, and we got a really cool community and a very understanding, and there's just a lot of good people in this program.
yeah. I remember one day Clay, the men's program director, I was helping Barbie out with some chores around the church, and I had left Dexter in one of the rooms, and Clay asked me when I was sitting down with him in his office to get a sip of water and check in on him real quick, where Dexter was at, and I was like, oh, he's in the room next door, and then he was like, oh, so Dexter currently has an absent father, and I was like, yep. I just went out and got some cigarettes and never came back. And he just died of laughter.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Like that's a cool thing about McShin too, is that the staff here is pretty they're awesome. Like they everyone's hired from within, everyone's in recovery. I would say 90% of the people that work here have gone through McShin themselves, so they know. And
Yeah, and I mean, we even have some current staff like yourself and Kyle, who's another guy at our house that currently are in housing.
yep. Is there anything else you want to share with me, or anything? I didn't. We don't. I don't have a lot of time today because we are going to the jail today to do a speaker event. Another get in the herd type thing. We're going out to Henrico East Jail, and we have Mo, the who used to be the men's program manager here. He's going to be speaking tonight. So, but I would like to do another podcast with you and go a little bit more in detail, and about some of the stuff you went through today. I just kind of went through I guess the outside a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say. This is honestly, this is my first podcast that I've done as a host or interviewing. So bear with me. I'm learning how to do this.
I think you did a fantastic job.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to share with everyone?
Not that I can think of at the moment. No.
Awesome. So we'll make sure we get you on the pod again, and we'll go into more detail. That way you can share more of your story. That way people out there that are going through or have gone through can see what you're doing and how you did it, and that way you can help others.
Yeah, I mean, when you said get in the pod, I'm such a nicotine addict that I immediately was like, oh, Juul pods.
Podcast. So, all right, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Anthony. You guys stay in the herd. My bad.